Hello, everyone. As of, just very recently, one of my friends had asked me what unit should they go for. Now, as you can see, I got Ginzo as my recent summon, but I have him already, so I'm not gonna go for it. Now, there are a lot of units you can go for. Some people are gonna ask, what unit should I go for? Or what unit do you think would be the most appropriate to go for? That is 100% more of your personal opinion and how your units look at right now. So, in my perspective, a unit I want to get right now would be her, Honoka. Since I do not have a unit that can prevent status ailments by 50% and against the boss that one of the very 5 bosses that we actually have that you require to fight. It's like where is she? I think she's up right now, if I remember correctly. Or did they take her down? Oh, they took her down already. Alright, no problem. I'll have something to do later. Alright, but that's not the point. The point is, that's the unit I want to get from my lineup. Now, it's all RNG based. If not, if I get lucky, I'll also get Berwick, the sword version. Because I don't have him either. Now, these are among the 2 that I want to get, that I might need to get. But, in another opinion, I also want to get Noel. Noel is pretty decent for a DPS type. Especially since he decreases evasion rate, as well as, 50% out when enemies' HP is under 30%. That does not affect bosses or units. So that means he is not limited to per se who the unit is. So let's say it's a boss, so he basically increases his damage by 50%. So basically he's a major damage dealer when it's the late game battle. So basically, let's go with the fact that he is basically a unit you can go with survivability over survivability DPS over nuking DPS, which a lot of people love to go with. Some people actually admit it. Well, one person already admitted it to me that they went about the roundabout with one of the ruins, the water bird. For the what was the water bird? Apologies, it was not the water bird. It was the earth bird. How they went a roundabout way and insta killing it and nuking it. Whereas my video provided a more guaranteed success of getting all 3 challenges completed. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to determine what unit you want and what unit you need. So, as I said, he's a want versus these 2 who are a need. For me, in water-wise, it's not so much as a need or want here in this situation, because I don't want her, nor do I need her, because I already have another unit that compensates for her character. If you guys know, she's the collab unit that we just recently got, and yes, she does almost the same thing, but hers is more situational kind of a thing. But that's nothing more to it. Now, as you can see, I don't have any other units I want or need, because I have most of them, ironically. But that's just me. But that does not make the point. So, depending upon how you guys feel, what you want and need are some of the basic units around here. First of all, there are suggested units that I can bring up into the conversation, like over here in the dark side, Zeorg, dark version of Zeorg. Now, he's very good for being a dark unit, especially since he actually adds in that defense. As you can see, lifesteal by 44% of damage takes all damage towards all allies instead, and negates damage for 2,000 total. Increases arc gauge by 2 when it attacked for 12 seconds. So basically, within the 12 seconds he is fighting, he is both negating damage and eating it, as well as dealing damage, and also as well as surviving. though that's also a situational biohazard, because remember, he does not have any physical resistances, and nor is his defense the very greatest. So he's a basic walking tank with glass. So yes, I'm literally emphasizing on that, guys. He's a walking tank, a walking glass tank. So be careful with him. Now another unit I suggest would be as well Rosa's Demon Divine Celia. Or sorry, I kinda Kalia? I guess that Kalea. I still cannot get the names right. I think Kalea would be a more appropriate term. Not because of her stats, but because that she is one of the very, I guess, decent in a recommends kind of situation. She's very good at what she does. She provides a art gauge buff. Now, her art gauge buff is increased by 2 times the amount when she has maxed out on her arts. So the max that she reaches is 5%. Basically, sorry, mine's getting cloggy, and I need to relax. All right. Kalia would be a good choice because of the fact that she actually, like I said, upon using her art 5 times, she doubles the amount of art gauge she regenerates. So if Ancient Blood multiplies art gauge autofill and increases its amount by 2. Oh. Yeah, so basically you're getting 5 arts gen every 10 seconds. For 10 seconds. That's not so bad. So you get, give or take, 5 art gauge. So 50 art gauge every time she activates her true art. So I thought it was double at first, but it's actually just an additional 2. But that's still not bad versus actually getting it. But that's if you don't have her. Especially since some people do not have her. To top it off, she would be good for Dark Ruins. Especially since she's actually probably... Let me see. Actually, I think she is the only unit amongst all the units here that increases art gauge. Oh, except for him. But he also takes away his own HP to increase art gauge. But, like I said, situational. So, with that being said, between Kalia, and Dark Zerorg would be one of your choices for the current pick. Now, why haven't I suggested any other units? Is because it's up to you. You could also, as well, if you don't have her already, go for Rem. Rem is a very good unit, especially when it comes down to her passives. Her passive being the astrology, damage and resistance to enemy with daily event 20 to 40% up. So, depending upon what today is. So we have today, since today is Friday. I think it's the Rainbow Relic. So it's randomized for one element. So you're literally heavily reliant on what elements today is on. So, okay, there you go. Today's element is light. So her effect would be light. But we already know most of these details as it is prior to, information provided by the game, as well as information provided by the unit itself. So you can just click it, determine it, see how you guys want to figure that out. Another one would be Regular Shrimp. He's a very good nuker, especially since he eats his own HP just to deal massive damage. But that's all dependent upon you. Ash is very squishy. I will admit that. He's a very squishy unit for his class. But he has HP Siphon, making him... I guess that's about the only thing. Oh, no, sorry. That's his equipment that adds HP Siphon. Crit rate 100% up when enemies blind. Damage 300% up when enemies under 30% HP. Okay, crit damage up as well. Okay, so he's very good at damage, but situation, my friends. Gotta be careful with the squishy units. Now, I haven't tried this guy out. Reduces enemies' attack by 50% for 15 seconds. Increases all allies' attack by 50% for 15 seconds. Reduces enemy dark resistance by 30% for 15 seconds. Autofills arc units are gauge by 4 for 10 seconds. Okay, that's not bad at all. Alright, so another unit, as you guys probably thought so as well. Oh, interesting. Will be Sealed Terrible Tyrant Ligor. So he's one of them that you probably try to go for as well, especially since he also does what Rem does, except he does it in a bigger way. But Rem also reduces defense, but I think I find it more appropriate to say that I prefer attack reduction over defense reduction. So, it's up to you guys. With that being said, let's move on to the next one, because I'm going all babbles and shit over, sorry, swear word. Apparently, like, YouTube has actually still about that. Is it this kid-friendly situation kind of stuff, content? So, not exactly 100% likability. But, down to the light. Light units, they are various versions to your whole list. But so far, so that I think about, there's not many that I would actually like to go for. First of all, most light units don't exactly pique my interest because they don't carry much variety when it comes down to except the collab units. If you guys know what I mean, you're probably if you guys, the old timers, if the old timers have seen the past events, they would understand what I mean between Mako, the Priestess, and I believe Usurpa. All three of those were pretty much the very best light types amongst the batches that we have currently. Usurpa being able to increase everybody's defense, Mako being a huge arc gen healing buffer as well, along with Usurpa. They both do this, they both bring up Argen and also heal. But Usurpa adds in the defense stats versus Mako adds in damage. Shiki, I don't know exactly how good she is. I did draw her once, but I have zero clue how good she is. Increases damage to enemy, stats ailments. Increases aren't gauged by 51 during third eye. So basically a status ailment debuffer. Alright, so not exactly just big guys. Oh, that's critical rate. Alright. Oh, that's pretty nasty boost. Okay, so it increases her own damage. Alright. Some people want her for some reason, Rhodia. That's why. Increases all allies' damage to dragon enemy by 30% for 20 seconds. Okay, that would make sense since she's very good. She can be made useful for going against the dark dragon in the light battle. But yeah, that makes sense. Alright. Actually, the one recommended, and believe it or not, I would recommend is Fena. Or Fina. Why? Well, this speaks for itself. Increases all allies' stat resistance by 100 for 10 seconds. And heals all allies' still ailments and nearby, and increases resistance by 100%. And auto recovery by 300 for 20 seconds. So that's the real reason why I think Fina deserves being one of the top light units that you should have on a team if you ever need a status ailment cleanser / healer. So between that, but that's about the only thing I can advise her for is status ailment cleansing, but not DPS. She's very good at status ailment cleansing and healing, but like I said, situational. It depends upon what battles you want to use her in. There have been a lot of cases where I have used her. So this is why I say I do recommend her. Like I should have mentioned this, but this list of recommendations is just my personal opinion. Like I said, I don't have much of use for every other unit here between Kalaya, the light version, but I don't use her as much as you would expect me to use her. Though I do use Fena a lot. I don't use Freed anymore since Freed got outclassed by most of the DPS damagers throughout the whole entire game. I do not use Leone because she literally eats her own HP alive. And the only unit I said I have an interest in is Noel since he is a DPSer. Next batch would be the Earth. Earth, of course, has a lot of variety. There are a lot of units that I can literally suggest here. For one, we all know him and love him, Fen, since he's always that one arc gauge buffer and equipment cooldown user. Two, if you don't have already, Paula, like this is literally one of the recommended because first of all, she reduces enemies' resistances for poison and paralyze, making her very dreadful in a battlefield, especially when you want to just paralyze your enemy to death, like I did when it came down to that one battle. It was a pain in the butt, but all worth it when I had her in the field. Another one is Mira, the Earth version. She's very good at increasing everybody's critical rate and critical damage. Oh, sorry, just damage in general, not critical damage. Okay, so it's critical rate, but regular damage. Alright. But also provides that small defense buff plus healing in case you don't have that healer walking around. But that's to be said, healer. Another good one is my personal, as well as one of my favorites, Norn. So between Norn and Fen, both were doing the same thing, except she has a bit of a little dramatic increase to everything. So it's a bit different story there, as well as the fact that I actually do like about is that she also adds a status image debuff as well. Then you have Revira, well, I don't know how to pronounce her name, her name, even though her name and mine are very similar. Revira. I don't know. Revira is Class A nuker. Yes, she's a Class A pure nuker. Every time a new wave starts, she gets her arc gauge up. So within the first 2 waves, you literally have her true art and you can get her to spam her to activate her Magia drive. Next one on my list of suggestions would be actually Parlet. What? Surprising? Not really. Parlet is actually good because of the fact that he's a water element based resistance unit. First of all allies max HP, but this is the Breath of Gaia. This is one of his abilities I like about him. All allies max HP 500 up, and damage to water enemies 25% up. So basically, he's a complete water damager, and he helps kill a water unit like brittle. But what I also like about him is actually his art, increasing the resistance from water types by 15%. And also, I do also love his second ability, his true art, being that he also adds art gauge as well. And his skill kind of comes in handy, especially when you just need that regular base art gen. But that's about all the units I suggest from this panel. Between the rest of them right now, I have no direct use of them. Momori, not exactly a unit I would even recommend, especially since she just does evasion and damage. Alma, not really, since all she does is she's just an all damage person who decreases enemies' resistance to magic. And the rest are just not really my type, especially her, because I have literally no use for her. I thought she would become in handy, especially with the waves and thing, but to be honest, Palma would actually make more sense, since Palma does a better job at making sure the enemy doesn't move. Gotta love them freeze frames. Alright, now here comes the water list. The water list is a lot bigger than the earth list. Now, we have multiple units that I have recommended on this list. Firstly, if you guys do not have a good nuker on your team, Veronica is by far the one I suggest. A good art gauge buff increaser would be Rosetta. Don't get me started. Rosetta Stone. Then there's also Knives, who actually helps out with fire resistance, but also increases resistance from enemies for 3 seconds. So imagine you're about to get hit by an enemy's overpowered nuke. Just increase the resistance. Just activate his true art. Let him activate. You got that 3 seconds. You got that 3 seconds of survival right there. Right before that nuke comes in, and he just completely negates it. Especially if you just add another 20% on top of the negation, making it 100%, making it the damage completely nullified, and all you receive is 1 damage. Increases water units skill damage by 120% and reduces skill co time by 120% for 15 seconds. So why didn't you just put that together? But that's amazing, in my opinion. That's just amazing for 1 unit. Next one, we all know is a personal favorite, Vox. We all know what he does. He's just really one of those nonchalant, nifty types that comes with his versatility. Basically, he's a big, versatile unit that comes in handy. Fetus, our guardian tank that's still right now being constantly used as the guardian tank of all teams. Especially since he is by far pretty much a pure tanker. Especially since he has 2 equipments for defense. And he, after Mega Drive activates, he has a 250 damage shield, which actually comes in pretty much handy. Now, with that one, I would, Melia. If you guys don't want to use Vox, Melia would be also a good recommendation for a water team. Next on that list would also be Weaver. Weaver is very good for his ability to add art gates to your team and increase your team's damage. Heals own HP by 120, increases art gauge by 8. Well, that's interesting. I didn't read that last part. But that's about it. BE output 15% up for water units only once. Okay. Own crit rate 20% up. Okay. Next one on that list will be, of course, I would go for Celia. As you all know, you saw my Celia walking around with the double affix stones because I didn't have anything else to do with the luck other than boost her damage like crazy. Celia, I love her for her ability to always freeze enemies mid-combat and make my life so much easier. Her chance of freezing enemies is so high, it's ridiculous. Next one I would put on my recommendation list is Diaz. Diaz, well, he's just basically just a art gate supporter kind of type. Next one on the list would be Aristella. Another one of the witches. Aristella comes in handy, especially when she actually also heals status ailments, as well as HP recovery. As you all know, she's constantly used, well, she was used originally for floor 21 before all the new units came through. She was quite the delightful unit to have around your team. I am by far also waiting for him to get a true evolution, or awakening, because I'm by far waiting to see how overpowered he will be. He will literally outclass most units, especially with his art. Being surprised as it is, he actually relies both on his art, just like Freed. He relied on his art to increase his stuff. But now that we have Veronica and a few other nukers, he's kind of hit the bottom row once he gets his awakening. I am still saddened by the fact that Pit Lord Tsar will not be seeing the light of day until his awakening has come through. Pity. I truly pity him. With who else is on my recommendation list from the water? Let's see. Of course, another one would be Corsair. Corsair, of course, would be one of my units because she's a free unit, and the fact that she also increases your water unit's damage, as well as her true art, adding another art gauge increase, and also adding high chance of freeze to that end. Or you can also get her sister, spoilers, who is basically more of a disease type character, but high chance of inflicting ultimate freeze. Ultimate freeze means that it has a longer effect of freezing, but she deals high chance of freezing. She just has a high chance of freezing the enemy, basically. That's all it really means. This is interesting. Damage 100% up to enemy with disease. Damage 100% up when enemy is freezing / ultimate freezing. Now, the difference between ultimate and freezing, I guess, would be the length of time in which they are frozen to per se. But that's an assumption I'm making. I'm not 100% certain. I have yet to test those theories out. Okay, now here's my list of fire elements. It's shorter than the list of water elements, but still quite as long. Maybe probably as long as the earth elements. Now, my first recommended unit would actually be Honoka, especially since she's a fire-based static element prevention unit. Next one, if you guys like him, Bullet Hell Roy. Bullet Hell Roy is actually pretty good DPSer. Damage 3, but this only, you see, as you can see, damage 300% up to enemy with HP under 30%, except boss. As you can see, I mentioned this a little bit before, that some units actually have that effect, but they have a certain limitation. So he's very good at mob killing. Negates damage during skill activation. When damage is negated, increases own art's damage by 50% for 9 seconds after skill has finished, which is pretty cool, I must add. I don't know. Let me see what she does. I didn't get her. Blind resistance 10% down. Enemies, not really. No. You don't really need a reduction in fire damage and resistances for status ailments, especially since you have other ones. Attack buffer increases on, so basically a pure DPS increaser. So kind of one of those one-size nukes. Alright, next unit I'm going to actually suggest is Sandstone. What? Why would you suggest an old unit? Well, believe it or not, Sandstone is actually very decent. If you guys watched my videos for the fire run, she made it so much of a survival that I felt the need to say that she is one of the needed units in the game simply because of the fact of her art, as well as her true art, because as of right now, she has her uses here and there. So she's on my recommended list. Another recommended would be, of course, Barrick, the sword version, and Barrick, the regular. Would I actually suggest getting Molina? It all depends upon you guys if you want Molina. Molina is basically the same thing as a mobile SAR, except she doesn't have the HP increase or the stats increase, just more of the critical rates and critical damage. That's all she's really there for, but she also increases a unit's evasion if they activate a skill while her skill is in use. But that's about the gist of things. Oh right, yes. I believe her art actually increases increases critical rate permanently throughout the battle. I'm not 200% certain. I think that's just a buff that lasts only a certain amount of time. Who else? Ifrit, not exactly on my top recommended list, but he's still pretty cool looking, so it's just appearance wise. I do like this guy as well for his very overpowered kind of stats, especially with his true art being that kind of look. That is very nasty. Now, if you guys saw my last video about how I looked at these units, I kind of looked at them and said, how nifty can these units be? Especially with the fact that they prevent damage to your team. Reduces damage to own self 100% during true art activation, but it's only for himself. But he goes, reduces all allies elemental weak damage by 100% for 5 seconds. So that means he basically prevents damage from the enemy onto him. Or, sorry, he prevents damage in general. Apologies. Weak elemental damage. So basically, you're seeing... Let's see, if you're going against a water type, he reduces all damage from the water type. That's all there is to it. Ana, not really. Ana is just basically for a single map run, whereas she is she's a poison prevention unit. But that's why I suggested Honoka to begin with, because Honoka can basically do what she does, except for she also just reduces art gauge, and she has a higher chance to prevent poison. But that's about it. Actually, I wouldn't say I recommend her, but she's on the list nonetheless of units that you might need, quote unquote, because of the fact that she has her true art there. But this is all for that fire run map, thinking ahead of time. But I will suggest her. Why? Because Leon may be a unit that's out there, but she hasn't been used quite a lot. She's still not viable to think about, but she is one of the units that are out there that I suggest. First of all, why do I suggest her? Is because, one, she's one of the units that does a hit count based art gen support. What? Yeah. So, upon using her skills constantly, her arts, once you use her true art and her hit count is at 99, she will literally boost herself and your entire team's art gauge by 99, making her completely quite dependent upon her use. But yes, she has saved me a bunch of times, especially since there's not a lot of art gauge supporters for the fire. Now, why didn't I recommend Geralt? Geralt is because Geralt doesn't really call himself nifty. First of all, he's a tank unit that can't even tank. He can't even eat all the damage that he receives. He's, bottom line, eating the damage. First of all, even if he's able to heal his own status ailments, he is by far the only unit that can actually heal his own status ailments. Damage from raid boss is 20% down. Really? He's considered a raid boss unit? Ugh, yeah. This is why I didn't suggest him. He may get an auto revive in case of emergency, but he is by far not one of the nifty type units. You get him, you kind of feel salty. And that's really all my recommendation list for the fire types. So between Honoka, the fire version of Roy over here, Sandstone, Sword Barrack, and Barrack himself, as well as going down the list to Leon, would be the major suggestions that I have. Major, meaning, ones that I would suggest and put out there. But with that being said, guys, I'm going to end the video here because I'm cutting it real close to the max time limit, to as which I would actually put the list onto. So, with that said, guys, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the game and have fun. And I'm sad that she's not on the list. Crunchyroll Hime-sama, you're a very good unit. Don't think I don't notice you.